Hey, everybody. My name is Yodit Mesfin Johnson, President and CEO here at New. And we are here with two of my cherished colleagues, Carrie and Linda, who by now I think lots of folks know are transitioning from the organization. And we wanted to take a moment to reflect on our time together as colleagues, but also as senior leaders in the organization, and really lean into honoring change and growth in an organization from a planful perspective. Um, so our aims today, in addition to reflecting on their journey, are also sort of insights on the strategies that they were advancing in their respective roles, which they'll talk about in just a moment. Preparing our teams, many years of preparing our teams for transitions. I am really interested in hearing, your look back, but also your look ahead. What are you sort of hopeful for New, the seeds that you may have planted for us that, you'll be excited about? Even like unfinished business, I'm okay with that. Like, I think we can be honest. Like, there's some stuff I just, didn't get to, or that I hope will carry forward. And then we're going to devote another session like this, another vlog, to folks who will be ascending into roles that are similar to yours, but certainly want to kind of acknowledge them towards the end. So, hey, y'all.
Hi.
Linda, you know, you offered a theme to help ground us, which I feel in this moment, like, I just need to say that we're bringing big feelings, big love into this space. So I'm really inspired by kind of the theme for our conversation that you offered. Would you tell us a little bit more about what you were thinking? You were actually the inspiration for this discussion.
Thanks, Yodit. Hello, everyone. I'm Linda Tam. I use she, her pronouns, and I've been the Chief Finance and Operations Officer for almost 3 years at New. And the theme, it is the beginning of April. It's spring. Plants are waking up and starting to bud. And I just saw a connection between this metaphorical planting of seeds that Carrie and I have sown into the organization, that they'll continue to grow and flourish.
Yeah. One of the pieces of our work that Carrie and I have spent really the last few years working on was articulating New's theory of change. And in that, one of the seeds we were planting is that we wanted to influence the field away from a culture of, or a mindset of scarcity. And I know this word is overused a lot, but if you think about abundance, meaning like many things can exist at the same time, sort of like a garden, right? And in that way, I think a lot of times we think about staff transitions, especially to leaders, leaving an organization, um, like the status quo is that that's a bad thing. And part of what got me excited about your invitation for today's conversation was there are alternative truths, and there's alternative ways that we can be thinking about not only how we message a transition, which for me is one of celebration and honoring the time that folks have spent and the energy that they poured into this organization. But also, I think why we can celebrate it is because we spent a fair amount of time, thinking about it and preparing for it, right? So
Mhm.
lots of folks have been socialized to think that transitions like these are a bad thing, but I want to use our influence to say, there might be another narrative there, and to poke around. I remember distinctly when I moved into this role as CEO in 2020 that a funder refused to give us a grant. And their rationale was, we want to wait to see sort of what your vision for New is going to be. And while I did have ideas, y'all, I was absolutely like building and scaffolding on the visions that I had inherited from my predecessor and their predecessor, right? Like, there's not a lot that's really revolutionary here. A lot of it is evolutionary. It's evolving. And so I was really frustrated that they wouldn't fund, but also that they were like associating the funding with this sort of single leader with a vision that's going to take the group forward. I was so pissed, y'all, that I said to our development person at the time, don't ever ask them for money. We don't even want their stinking money. Y'all know, because we work closely together, that I sometimes have those responses. But what I do want to acknowledge is that we had a vision, and we have collectively, not only documented that vision, but we're just wrapping up, like casting a longer vision, a 10-year vision now. And we just wrapped up, Carrie, maybe I'll bring you in here to talk about strategy and our strategic plan, and how is that kind of lent or how is that lending to our discussions of transition and structure and those sort of things.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's interesting, like that. And this was part of the ways that it was very important to me to see through the writing of this strategic plan. It's been part of the work that I've done to help us think about, like, Yodit, while you're not the only person, but you are the lead visionary for new. And that's really helped to guide, to think about where we want to go, and to help solicit the other input from the other folks who've been connected, and to bring us, bring everyone into the process of casting that vision for the future. And I've seen my role of understanding, we all talk about where we start, and then my role is to help us figure out, like, okay, well, what's it take to get there? And to help work with our team to be like, all right, what strategies, what are you doing? What are we doing? And that's part of what we laid out in the strategic plan, is what's shifting. So even things now, we listened to our team members who said, like, I'm noting there, we notice ourselves some pull back from the foundation world, from the funders, and saying there's not the same money that there was a few years ago. And we're hearing that from some of our clients. So we're trying to think, as part of our strategic plan going forward, like, okay, well, what do we need to do to shift? We're going to need to think of different strategies and means to get to the vision. And that might mean different relationships that we have with other organizations in the community, different partnerships, and coming together to pool our supports to invest in our work and values aligned work with folks who are similar thinking to us, and that we can complement one another's work. Because clients will come to us and they say, hey, we really want these things. And we'll say, well, we don't do that. And instead of just saying no, we're like, well, how do we think differently about who can we partner with to provide some of those services to folks in a complementary way? So I think what the strategic plan is really grounded in what our community says they need, what we've been observing in the community and in our sector, and helping us to think in really intentional ways. What can we do to get to our vision, understanding that context that we find ourselves? So I'm proud of what we've designed, and I really appreciate all the input from the people who helped to contribute to that, to get to this point.
Yeah, undergirding. So, right, the strategic plan is sort of the roadmap to this vision, and our mission, or our reason, our purpose for existing is an important part, an important touchstone of the organization, as are our values. And those are all things that within the last 4 years, the three of us have been a part of, a part of contributing to, and a part of using as filters in our decision making, right? So it's not just a strategic plan, or just a vision, or just a mission or a set of values. It's all of those things kind of working together. And that has been my ask of the two of you, to be models of the importance of integration of those things, and to really do that in a people-centered way. So today it's great to kind of take stock of where we've been, so we can understand that. And also offer an ode to the incredible team that's going to move our work together. And I mentioned our core values, one of which is humanity, our shared humanity. And that is a newer value. That's something we worked on too. That value is newly defined in the organization. But the idea is that when we're constructing the financial plan, the business plan, the strategic plan that helps support our work, that at the center of that are the people that are here. And so our human-centered design approach to our work is a fundamental part of news culture. And it's been an area where I've seen you both thrive. So Linda, I want to bring you into space. Maybe just a little bit of that reflection I talked about as an aim of today. And then I'm curious about how have the mission, the vision, the values, that three-legged stool shaped your time, almost 3 years in June. And I should mention, Carrie is nearly a decade here. Linda coming up on 3 years, both of you at very different phases of your careers, but really lending your own unique gifts and talents to the role. So Linda, tell us a little bit about your journey.
Thanks, Yodit. I think the idea of shared humanity is something that I want to highlight from what you said earlier, because we don't exist without our relationships. And so again, it's pushing back on that single narrative individualism. And almost ego. It's like, who would I be to say, like, in these 3 years, I did all this great stuff, and it wasn't anything to do with the team who was here, which really it is all to do with the team, and so much to do with then building strong, deep relationships, the ability to show up as a human being and like talk about all the things that are happening in our lives, the very real things, the very messy things. So for me, it's my internalized work of my racial identity as an Asian woman. It's my identity as a child of immigrants, and then an immigration story to come to the US as well, Australia being my home. Some of it is this journey of belonging, both as in where I belong in an organization, but where I want to belong in my life, and just really kind of questioning those things. In a way, I think the status quo would have you do all that separately to your work, and you show up to your work and you do your job. These are the duties that you have to do every day, every month. And what I'm so grateful for at New is the invitation and the permission really to have all that be one holistic thing, that you do your work and the hard internal work that you're doing has value, and it has value in being able to truly live and like enact our shared values as an organization, and it just leads to then better outcomes. And I think it loops all the way back then to the relationship piece, where then my colleagues can trust me and can trust that, hey, we are thinking about our values at the core of every one of our decisions.
Yeah, thank you for that. You named this sort of culture of rugged individualism, which is a part of our dominant culture. And so the expression of this shared humanity is a way to push back on that and to say, we are actually better together. And also that I'm very aware this organization is nothing without the people in it, right? We can have a brand, we could have products, but if we don't have people who are helping us to connect that work in a meaningful way with other folks who are interested in, building community-based organizations that actually strive towards meet, achieve, exceed their goals, and in my dream, one day close their doors, right? That nonprofits aren't needed anymore. Carrie, I wonder, just as you reflect a little bit on your time here, we talked a little bit about shared humanity. What are some ways in which, you've grown at New? Linda mentioned some things for her.
Interesting. Like I wanted to answer it in like two different ways, right? Because the initial thing when I thought about shared humanity, it was more, I couldn't help but think about a shift that I'm really proud of that I've seen New do of like centering the people that we care about, whether it's the staff at New and our community members, and really like actively listening in different ways to help us make better decisions. And I think that has been an evolution throughout the time that we've been here at New in different ways to really think about a community as a whole and not just a more of a transactional relationship. So I have, in terms of my own place, like I have grown, and that to me is when I think of us being a very equity centered organization, that is important to us, that I have deepened my interest in thinking of understanding of how to engage our community members and ask for their feedback and ask for the understanding. And it has helped me to understand more about my colleagues, about the work that we do and the impact that it's had in the communities that we are. So personally, it's been a big change in the time that I've been here, just thinking about the work that we do, the relationships we have with folks. I've learned personally, like, sometimes we all, that like adage of you build a plane while you fight. We've learned a lot about the work of our organizations and on ourselves, and like as a whole and individually. And I am appreciative. I am really indebted to the work I've had, to the people that I've been able to work with, because that's where I've learned so much. It's pushed. There's been times that like it's pushed me out of my comfort zone and it's been challenging. And I think that I'm a better person for it. And I've always taken great pride in saying that I work with New. I think we do really important, impactful work and I hear people say it back to us. So I'm happy. I'm really happy to have been part of it. And I'm excited that it's going to keep going and growing going forward.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I do want to just point out a couple things about both of your like sort of origin stories at New, like, and I think they really speak to sort of like the characteristics and values that you brought to New. Carrie, among many things I could say about you, that you are tenacious, and when you were interested in New and our work, you kind of did the typical networking. But I remember you reaching out and saying, I am really interested and I'm willing to volunteer. And I don't remember exactly how long you were here, but before we were like, oh, we need this sister on the team, and I think that tenacity and really also a curiosity that you hold. You are a lifelong learner. And so what it meant is, even if I was like, okay, Carrie, I finally feel brave and bold enough to name white supremacy, like, and I want to make a fellowship for, leaders of color. And I want to, think about what it means to bring white leaders, into that work. And, we'd have our oh shit moments, but you never back down. That tenacity, that curiosity meant, you leaned into it. And, Adrienne Marie Brown says that we move at the speed of trust and capacity. And what I don't acknowledge enough with you in particular is that you really did extend trust to me. Sometimes we had capacity challenges, like, whoa, where are you going there, Yodit? And it might reach the upper limits, not just of you, but myself and others' capacity. But you trusted me, and your team and the folks you worked with trusted you. And that I think is a really powerful, sometimes unnamed element of change is trust. So when you came to me and said, hey, I think I'm kind of getting to my upper limits at New, like you trusted me to say that. And I trusted that you would not just, file your 2 weeks and head out the door. And that's, I think, when I was talking about big feelings earlier, it's because you and Linda really are walking right up to the moment that you officially step away, thinking about how to leave this place better than you found it. I saw you come off mute. Please feel free and
no, I just want to. I mean, the trust is it's a testament to you, right? Like I have to like turn back, Yodit. It's you earned the trust. You helped. You showed the way that you have grand ideas, and And sometimes I was like, I couldn't always see what you can see. And that's part of why you're in the role that you are.
Yeah.
But you have a lot of patience to help, like once you kind of lay out this grand vision to like bring people in. And I'm always been glad to be along for that ride. Even if I couldn't see it from the moment from day one, it takes me like a half minute to get there. But
Yeah.
you're like a step ahead, and I do trust you to help guide us there. And I trust the other teammates that we can figure it out. Even if it doesn't always look exactly like that, we'll get there. We'll figure
Yeah.
it out.
You also did some coaching up, and we're getting way off topic, but this feels like really relevant. You did some coaching up, and a couple of pearls of wisdom that I think other leaders might appreciate is, and you made me think about it just now, is this notion of make sure you don't get too far ahead, right? So visionaries often can see the thing that perhaps others can't, or can't see it as clearly. But we talk about leadership in Champions for Change. We talk about, and in our leadership learning communities, we talk about leadership as influence. And you got to be able to bring those folks along. So thank you for those moments. I wrote this 10-year vision, and I said, are you feeling connected with it? And you're like, I need to see you role modeling it, right? It wasn't that I wouldn't do that. It was, how are you ensuring that you're kind of bringing it alive, so to speak? So those are two things of many. I want to move to Linda, but another kind of emergent idea that I feel more confident to name explicitly, because we've talked a little bit about identity, and we've talked about identifying, like including people across, different facets of the business or stakeholders or what have you. But what, until very recently, and having another woman of color in leadership help this, I would not say to a full group or full staff that I am applying a Black feminist theoretical framework to our work. And to be clear, that framework, which, our elders in the movement developed, is about intersectionality. It's about valuing not just our racial differences, but our gender and sexuality differences, our age differences, and that being able to lead from that place, and to have Linda, someone mirror back to me how important that was to thrive at work, to be able to bring your whole self. I think I noticed it from the interview with you, the way you articulated the connection to our values. I sort of felt it in my body before I could understand what it would mean in terms of your impact here. But it's that belonging that you speak to. So I do want to have you talk a little bit about how News values informed your work as our CFO, but I also want to acknowledge what it's meant to bear witness to you, embodying, living out, growing, and then leading through these values that are intersectional, that are feminine as hell, that are, people-centered, that, and we each share being moms, and I think a big part also of how important our families are to us shows up in our care, not that we think the people at work are our kids, but like in that care for the world and care because our babies are in it. Yeah, Linda, love to just maybe have you tell us a little bit more about like leading our work, and specifically our budget and our financial strategy, and what are some of the jewels from the time you've been with us?
Yeah. So when I first started there, it was the month of June, and News fiscal year runs from July to June. And so that was a time when the budget was pretty well done. And I really appreciate the overlap that I had with the retiring CFO, Ben Williams, who currently serves on our finance committee, and that continuity has been wonderful. But the sort of like it, I wasn't in the room where it happened for creating that budget. And that was something that really informed how I wanted to then move on for my next thing, to bring in someone who could be part of that process. And I think it serves the organization to be part of the decision making for the people who will take this work on. And the intention there, and I'm really proud of the hire that I ended up making a year ago of Tina Zoller. She's incredibly capable. She came in as our finance and employee experience manager. And so this is maybe a nod ahead to the interim leadership that we have in place. But Tina is really going to be part of and is already leading the budgeting process with me supporting that. I'm not going to be here in the upcoming fiscal year to help steward that budget forward. And so being able to cede that ownership at this point in time felt really something that I learned directly at New that I wanted to put in place.
I do want to note how that ties to a strategic goal of the organization. We said, after you came on in 2021 and we were working on goal setting for 2022 and 2023, we said we wanted to be more intentional about succession planning. And I just don't want to lose that point before you move on to the next piece, which is the preparation of Tina Zoller to move into this role is in large part to do with the way we structured your and her alignment in your roles, right? And what we brought her close to and the way in which the participatory budgeting that you're going to talk about contributed to that. I also want to name that you came in really at the height of racial uprisings in this country, and we were trying to think about beyond performative action, how could equity and justice live in our domains of control, which are our budget, right? We couldn't control everything that was happening outside, but we absolutely could make a difference and could lean more towards equitable and just practices. So participatory budgeting emerges from what justice is designing with and not one of the elements of justice is designing with and not for. So maybe to speak just a little bit about the budgeting process and what you did there.
Yeah, so participatory budgeting really trusting that the people who know best how to spend our resources and how to have the impact and achieve the goals that New as an organization is trying to achieve, they're the people who are going to make the best decisions about how to spend that money. And so bringing them in and much closer to the budgeting process. It's, full staff given voice and empowerment to really shape the upcoming year. And then really the ownership to move it forward to sort of say, I understand what went into the numbers that we put into the upcoming year's budget or, the current year budget as we move, as each month moves forward. And if there are pivots that we want to make, I know what was involved and what we need to pivot. And so that's something that Carrie and I really partnered on. We held these mission margin meetings as well each month going forward with the team to really dive deep into what the assumptions were that we would have achieved, at this milestone. And if we were off, which, we're often off, the budget is our best guess. But if we're off, what are the future things what are we doing in the future what adjustments can we make to the future? Yeah. I also think about the pay equity work. This is one that I think, Yodit, you had given this invitation at the beginning to say the things that are not quite done yet. And I will put pay equity into this one. I feel like we've done some really cool things and we're moving in a good direction here. And I'm excited for where the team continues to take this work. But even naming that, talking about salaries is really taboo, and that we, in our monthly dialogues, and actually maybe Yodit, you can talk about how the staff dialogue even came to be, because that was right in the pandemic before I joined the team, or maybe Carrie can, but being able to have these hard conversations within our full staff group, making time once a month to have this dialogue, true dialogue back and forth, and an invitation to kind of name what's uncomfortable and to sit in that discomfort And so the specific example was like talking about money. It is really uncomfortable. And kind of that invitation that it's sort of the individual work, but then it flows into this bigger space. That if each of us then are less uncomfortable or more okay with the discomfort of talking about money, that we can really ask those questions and then move us more towards an even more equitable place than we have been. So even in the time that I started, salaries and benefits have increased by over 70%, which is huge. And it's a direct result of taking our values and intentionally investing in the team, not just in the salary, which is one of those big investments we made, but also in a generous time off policy. We actually have a fully flexible, unlimited time off, and we set a minimum of 3 weeks that we want our full-time staff to be taking. And we measure that. We look at that and make sure that folks who are not taking the time are reminded, like, hey, this is a minimum, because we know that when you rest and when you take time away from work, you're actually more effective at work. You're a better colleague, a better, just like a better human being. And that's important. So the health insurance, being able to offer generous health insurance, life insurance, retirement benefits, there's more to go. And I think there's so many threads. We kind of explore this like PEO model to be able to say, wouldn't it be amazing if we could offer really great benefits to the whole sector? Like a facet of the way health insurance is done in this country is that it's harder that, a smaller team, a nonprofit that's like 3 people doesn't have that same buying capacity as a University of Michigan to then be able to offer really like a full-blown set of retirement benefits. But if we can collectively organize and come together and like pool our resources and pool our kind of like our voices, really, then it's being able to push on insurance providers to provide more.
Yeah, we talk a little bit about dominant culture values, but the other reality is that many nonprofits have inherited for-profit business models within our nonprofit structure, even though we actually have a double bottom line. We have to meet, and the IRS requires this, we have to meet our mission and our margin in order to be able to continue our work, right? So if you think about the COVID-19 pandemic and the racial uprisings, really opening this portal, I like to say, right, of what's possible if suddenly in the pandemic, everyone can have, access to healthcare, or everyone can have groceries or their rent paid or what have you, right, through the subsidies that we got in the government, then we have a window into what's possible. And I got really frustrated in a lot of our racial equity and justice work happened when everybody wasn't actually cared for, and when those benefits started to contract, which is its own big wicked problem. But I want folks that watch this to be asking, which is what we did together, what is possible? And in what ways are we either consciously or unconsciously perpetuating the status quo? And so our org structure, our compensation model, our benefits, our relationship with our staff, all had these vestiges of organizational structures that we know will not support a diverse, a younger, a differently abled, a racially diverse, a multiracial, populace, or a set of employees and teammates or dream mates. So these pieces that you're describing are all connected to a strategy that's tied to our mission, which says we're pursuing visions of a just and thriving society. So I just want to button that up with saying that part of what my approach has been is that it's inside out work, that we're evaluating and looking at the inside of the organization and at ourselves, to your point, Linda, about our relationship to money, which has, in this economic system, it has been harmful for some folks, and in the business world and in organizations, it has been harmful. And so Carrie, I want to kind of throw to you, because much like our financial strategy, a lot of the work that you were doing in not just strategic planning, but evaluation and impact measurement was also about, we're trying these new ideas on, let's evaluate how it's working, so that we can continue to advance towards justice. So you've been really instrumental in all of those pieces, and I wonder if you might talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, thanks. I think I think I mentioned earlier, like, sort of there's a transactional notion when we first got here. And it was like, oh, we know best. We're going to stand in front of a room. We're going to lecture ad, or we'll come in and fix things and we'll walk away, and you will be better and we will be better. And I think the shift over time that I think I have been a part of is really like, let's slow down enough to really listen to the needs of our community. So starting that annual survey, like, are we making a difference for you? And then sometimes you said like, yes, and sometimes you said no. And the community, they told us what made a difference so that we could do more of that. And then maybe pull back on the stuff that wasn't landing right. Like it was insufficient, and helping us to think more clearly how important it was to go deeper with a number of our clients and community members. So maybe we work with them and they're a tenant, and they're also a consulting client, and they get financial services support or IT support, or they're participating in learning communities. When we've noticed the layered approach, when they're able to engage with us over time, we can get deeper impact. And I think we've noticed that through our relationships. So over time, deepening those relationships. And my part, I think, is that evaluation, like asking people for feedback, asking people to be a part of it, and working with our staff to understand how to use the feedback that we're hearing from people to help us inform our decisions. So we can only do better work when we look at data, when we look at feedback, when we understand what we're doing that's having an impact, and then be strategic. Because as Linda says, you write a budget at the beginning of the year, you write your goals at the beginning of the year, and then all of a sudden you come to March and you're like, oh, that may or may not be where you're going. So we have faith in our teams, not just the leadership, but our teams, to be able to look at that and try to think, well, what can we do? What are our options? How do we shift our strategies to be able to make different decisions to get to the goals we want to achieve? So I'm proud of that, of at least working towards that. That's what we're striving to do. And it's not easy. It's hard sometimes to admit, like sometimes when it doesn't go the way we thought it would. And it's hard to, like, when you're looking at something, if you're not hitting your financial goals, well, I don't know the answer. Sometimes it's hard to think of what options are, the things that don't exist. How do you create them? So having patience and working with folks and recognizing we've been through those things before, I think that's the opportunity when you're here for some time to be like, it's okay. We go up, we go down. Sometimes you get a lot of people expressing interest. Sometimes it's quieter. And how do we ride the waves to take care of our staff when they're over capacity or under capacity, and to really support conversations around them.
Yeah, not to keep looking back, but y'all are both kind of unveiling these structural issues within this sector and ecosystem, right? And so, intermediaries like New historically have offered up and been purveyors of best practice. And I think we could say that at some point we realized that we needed to shift away from a one-size-fits-all model, right? And also to acknowledge that actually this thing isn't working. And the question I asked you, Carrie, in 2020, when we shut down the entire organization, when financial precarity was looming, when we didn't know what we were going to do as a in-person, revenue-driven consulting practice, I said, Carrie, the thing that I know to be true is, or what I want to know to be true is, what right do we have to be here? And you said, the only way we can answer that is to ask, is to gather data, right? And it couldn't be us navel gazing. It had to be that we were brave enough to go out and say, hey, we said we were going to do this in your workshop or in your consulting gig with us or in this IT, service that we're providing. Are we actually doing what we committed to? And sometimes folks said, no, you're not. And then you would have the tough job of bringing that back. But we didn't use repercussion or a punitive approach. We used data to learn, to get curious. Again, a hallmark of what you've brought here. And it allowed us to pivot and to continue to refine. And I think what you've helped us get better at is that abolitionist principle of nothing for us without us, or, not designing for, but with. And so through the development of our community advisory council, which is also, kind of morphing into our some of our committee work with strategy and impact, to our culture cultivators group at NEW, that is a staffed team that tells us about the pulse of the organization, to how we've brought more leaders into our leadership sort of cipher, all of those flowing back to the future we want is not going to exist if we continue to hold up the status quo. And so this messiness that you describe has everything to do with emergence and experimentation and trying on something that most of us have not seen in this sector or in the work, right? And when you have a 31-year-old organization, you're doing a lot of sort of unraveling and untangling from being tethered to these systems. So Linda, when you talk about an organization that could provide benefits to the field, that's a really audacious strategy. We're not going to be, probably going after that for a few years, but we're starting to dream about what would it mean to normalize wellness for nonprofit workers, right? Including our own team. So that's that. We did a better job, you and Tina, of selecting great benefits for our team. How can that be extended into the field, right? Inside out. Well, friends, we've been chatting for a little bit. I do want to just sort of ask anything that you didn't get a chance to say that you'd really like to share before we wrap up. Certainly, you both have nodded to some of the succession planning that we have in place. Our very own Will Jones is going to be taking on some responsibility, but neither person who is succeeding you is actually taking your exact role on. And I want to nod to you, Linda, who was like, I don't think NEW needs a full-time CFO. I think you need someone who can build more capacity of our teams to understand financial stewardship, right? And Carrie, similarly, you built this infrastructure for strategy and evaluation, and a lot of that will move forward, but also we're bringing narrative and storytelling. Will Jones, who presently leads our contributions and communications and is a phenomenal storyteller, is going to help kind of take that evaluation and learning culture that you've helped to develop and pull it forward. So do you have any final thoughts for these leaders who are walking in these beautiful footprints and paths that you've led? Any final words of wisdom?
Yeah, I think mine is around normalizing mistakes. It's been a lot of my personal work, as seems to be a theme that I come through at NEW. But this idea that it's okay to have an idea of what we set out to do, and then to take stock and to say, hey, that didn't land, or that we missed the mark here, and that it's okay that we have each other, that we can name our mistakes, name when we need help. And I think that's the culture piece that really I'm proud that I was a part of, and I know that will continue at NEW.
Let's see. I think there are moments when I would question what the right thing is to do. And I think what has helped me is often looking back at our values. Like when there's been difficult decisions, when I don't know how to proceed, I really found those that they would ground me. They would help me in relationships with my colleagues, with my clients, with our community, and to think about what's the right thing to do. And I think those should continue to be sort of the beacon that help to provide the guidance and the vision, where are we going? Is this getting us to where we want to go? And it's okay to let go of the things. So things that I might have thought were the right way to get there, there's many ways to get there. And I hope, and I really have full faith in the new leadership to find the right path at this next phase to get us to the vision that we're heading for. So I know I'm very excited to see where you'll take it.
Well, something that we often do at New is kind of just take a collective breath. I'm gonna do that in a little bit of an abbreviated way, but really just breathing in immense gratitude and breathing forth continued like authentic pursuits for both of you, right? Like I love and I'm drawing inspiration from the way both of you in very different ways are authentically pursuing ways that you can continue to have an impact for yourself and for our community. And I won't be able to fully articulate like all the words right now, but I hope that a deep, heartfelt thank you is sufficient today. Thank you for the trust and the love and the journey. And I wish you both like much, much success. Thank you for all you've done.
Thank you. Thank you, Yodit and Linda, for being such incredible partners and mentors and leaders and teachers. It's been a great journey. Appreciate it immensely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for tuning in. And stay tuned for a new vlog like this coming up with Will and Tina and myself as we start to cast a future together, advancing the good work, the good seeds that Linda and Carrie planted. Take care, everyone.